You know, people always tell you revenge isn't worth it. That it doesn't bring closure. That you should just be the bigger person and let karma work itself out. And maybe, for some people, that's true. But those people have never watched their own brother systematically dismantle every relationship they've ever tried to build, all while their parents stood by and let it happen. I'm not the bigger person. What I did, it worked. Every single part of it. And honestly, I'd do it all again. Grab some snacks, because this isn't a story I'm proud of, but it's one I absolutely needed to tell. My older brother, Braxton, he had this hobby. He treated my relationships like target practice. Every girl I ever got serious about, he'd zero in, whisper some garbage in their ear about me, then act like he was just being protective. I swallowed it for years, I really did. Until the day I walked in on him in bed with my latest girlfriend. What I did after that, it didn't just blow up the family. It detonated it. Let me tell you about Braxton. He's 32 now. Pharmaceutical sales rep, pulling down about $140,000 a year before bonuses. Drives this silver Audi he named Sylvia, which honestly tells you everything you need to know about his personality right there. He's got that smile, the kind that makes women forget they have standards and makes men forget they have spines. The guy could walk into a room of strangers and, within 3 minutes, somehow be the undisputed center of attention. And my parents? They've treated him like he's the second coming since we were kids. Every family photo, he's front and center, looking like he just stepped out of a cologne ad. Every holiday dinner, the conversation revolves around Braxton's latest sales record, Braxton's new watch, Braxton's trip to Phoenix with the regional team. I mean, I finished my service in the Navy with a commendation for logistics excellence during a deployment that actually mattered. And my dad spent most of my welcome home dinner asking Braxton about his quarterly numbers. I'm sitting there, in my dress whites, and my father is genuinely more interested in pharmaceutical revenue projections. That's the household I grew up in. I stopped expecting their approval somewhere around 25. But what I couldn't stop caring about was Braxton systematically destroying every woman I ever tried to build something real with. First was Sarah. This was junior year of college. 7 months we were together. She was pre-med, funny, had her whole life mapped out in a way that made you feel like you were part of something good. I actually thought we had a future. Then suddenly, she's acting like I'm a stranger. One-word texts, cancelled plans, that slow fade that just screams something changed, but nobody's going to explain what. When I finally cornered her, she hit me with the truth. Braxton had been texting her, said he had concerns about me. Things that worried him. I asked what things. She got vague, said Braxton told her I had a temper, that I'd had problems before, that our family worried about my stability, and she should be careful getting too attached. He told her he was only looking out for her because he genuinely cared about her well-being. The man had spoken to her, maybe, 4 times total. 4. And suddenly he's deeply invested in her well-being. I tried to explain. Told her Braxton was lying, that I'd never had issues with anything except maybe eating too much pizza during finals week. But once someone plants that seed of doubt, it doesn't matter what you say. She looked at me like she was waiting for the crazy to come out. Like every word I spoke was just confirming what Braxton had warned her about. 3 weeks later, she ended things. Said she needed space to focus on her studies. 2 months after that, she was on Braxton's Instagram at some rooftop lounge, his arm around her waist like he'd won a prize at the county fair. They lasted 5 weeks before he stopped returning her calls, because Braxton doesn't actually want them. He just wants to prove he can take them from me. The worst part? I ran into Sarah about a year later at a coffee shop near the University District. She looked embarrassed when she saw me. We made awkward small talk for about 30 seconds before she said something that still sticks with me. I should have just asked you instead of believing him. I'm sorry. I told her it was fine, which was a lie. But what was I supposed to say? The second was Maya. Same approach, just slower execution. We'd been together almost a year when Braxton started appearing everywhere she went. The coffee shop where she did her grad school reading. The gym where she took spin class on Tuesday nights. Her job's parking lot one random afternoon. Always friendly. Always so concerned about his little brother. Always dropping little comments about my mental state. He told Maya I had anger issues, that I'd been in fights, that our parents had discussed getting me help but I was too proud to accept it. He painted himself as the worried older brother, just making sure she understood what she was getting into. None of it was true. I spent 4 years in the Navy as a logistics specialist. You don't survive that environment by being some hothead who can't control himself. But Braxton sold the lies so well that Maya started treating me like I was one bad day away from snapping. She'd flinch when I raised my voice about anything, even if I was just excited about a game on TV. That relationship bled out over 4 months. The third was Chloe. And Chloe is where I finally stopped being the understanding younger brother. We met at my gym. Pediatric nurse at the local children's medical center. Calm energy. She made you feel like everything was going to work out, no matter how bad things seemed. We dated for 14 months. I was saving for a ring. Had a whole proposal planned at this place she loved in Midtown Phoenix. Then my parents threw their anniversary party. Braxton had been circling Chloe for weeks before. Random texts. Lunch invitations, since they supposedly worked near each other. Comments at family dinners about how she was out of my league, delivered as jokes but hitting like targeted jabs. I pulled him aside at Thanksgiving and told him straight up to back off. Told him I knew exactly what he was doing. He just laughed. Put his hand on my shoulder like I was a confused child having a tantrum. Said he had no idea what I was talking about. Said, maybe I should talk to someone about these trust issues. My parents' house, February. 30 years of marriage. Extended family. Neighbors. My dad's golf buddies. Catered food, a rented tent in the backyard, a DJ playing old-school R&B. Maybe 150 people packed into every corner of the property. I was supposed to be celebrating. Instead, I spent 2 hours watching Braxton work Chloe like a long con. Every time I walked over to check on her, he'd drift away casually. Every time some uncle pulled me into a conversation about the game last weekend or his new fishing boat, Braxton would materialize next to Chloe within seconds, whispering, laughing. My best friend, Finn, was there. We'd known each other since middle school football. He'd watched Braxton's pattern play out twice before. Around 9, he grabbed my arm by the refreshment table and pulled me to the side. Bro, you need to leave right now. Take Chloe and go. I said, this is my parents' party. And he said, and that's your brother over there running game on your girl in front of 100 relatives. He's baiting you, man. You swing on him here, you're the bad guy forever. Take Chloe. Fake a headache. Just get out. He was right. I should have listened. But I was tired. Tired of running from my own family's events. Tired of letting Braxton control where I could exist and when. Around 10, I couldn't find either of them. Checked the kitchen, the living room, the backyard where the DJ was still playing Earth, Wind, and Fire. Nothing. Then I walked upstairs to use the bathroom and heard sounds coming from my old bedroom at the end of the hall. Sounds that made my stomach drop. I didn't kick the door down, didn't yell. I just turned the handle and pushed it open like I was opening any other door on any other night. Braxton was on my childhood bed with Chloe underneath him. Her dress bunched up, his shirt on the floor next to my old baseball trophies from Little League. They froze when the hallway light hit them. 5 seconds of dead silence. The bass from the DJ downstairs vibrating through the floorboards. Then Braxton smiled. That smug smile I'd been watching my entire life. Ever heard of knocking, man? Here's where I made my first mistake. The smart play was obvious. Pull out my phone, record them, walk away with leverage I could use later. Instead, I stood there frozen while 28 years of being overlooked came boiling up in my chest. Braxton climbed off the bed, took his time buttoning his shirt, walked right up to me, got in my face close enough that I could smell his cologne. Relax, little brother. She's a grown woman. Made her own choice. Maybe if you were more interesting, she wouldn't have to look elsewhere, you know. Then he shoved me. Both hands flat on my chest, hard enough to bounce me off the hallway wall. I snapped. One clean shot that had 28 years of frustration behind it. He dropped, cracked his head on the doorframe going down, cut open above his eye. Then I kicked him right in the stomach. He made a sound like a deflated balloon. After that, I stepped back immediately. Didn't throw another punch. Just stood there while he started screaming like I'd tried to kill him. The whole house came running, footsteps thundering up the stairs. My dad burst in first, saw Braxton on the floor bleeding, saw me standing over him, and made his decision in about half a second. He didn't ask what happened. Didn't notice Chloe in the corner trying to fix her dress. Just saw his golden son hurt and his other son responsible. Braxton played victim like he'd been rehearsing for years. Acted confused. Said I attacked him for no reason. Never mentioned the shove. Never mentioned what he was doing when I opened that door. My mother was crying. My father was shouting. Relatives crowded the hallway asking what happened. Chloe had already slipped downstairs and disappeared. Someone called the cops. 20 minutes later, I was in handcuffs in my parents' driveway while Braxton sat on the porch holding ice to his face, accepting sympathy from people who'd watched me grow up. Now, my cousin Jamal becomes important here. He was at that party. We weren't particularly close, but he was the only person besides Finn who actually saw the full picture that night. He'd been coming up the stairs to use the bathroom when Braxton shoved me. Saw the whole thing. When the cops arrived, Jamal tried to tell them what actually happened. Tried to explain that Braxton pushed first. But my parents shut him down. My father actually pulled Jamal aside and told him to stay out of family business. Told him this was between brothers and he didn't understand the full context. Jamal backed off. He called me 3 days later and apologized. Said he should have spoken up anyway. I told him it wasn't his fault. He was 23 years old being told to shut up by people twice his age. What was he supposed to do? But Jamal remembered everything, and that would matter later. They booked me downtown. Assault. Set bail at 1500. The officer processing me asked if I wanted to talk about what happened. I told him my brother was in bed with my girlfriend and I hit him once. He nodded like he'd heard that exact story 100 times. I called my parents from the holding cell. My mother answered on the 4th ring. We're not bailing you out. You need to learn that actions have consequences. I asked if Braxton told her what he was doing when I walked in. What he was doing with my girlfriend in my childhood bedroom. Long pause. Then, this isn't my business. Violence is never the answer. Then she hung up. I sat in that cell for 6 hours, replaying every moment I'd ever given these people the benefit of the doubt. Every time I'd forgiven Braxton, every holiday I'd smiled through their obvious favoritism. The guy in the next cell asked what I was in for. Told him the short version. He laughed and said family was overrated. He wasn't wrong. Finn showed up at midnight with the bail money, $1,500 from his savings account, because that's what real loyalty looks like. Just signed the paperwork, drove me to his apartment, and handed me a bottle of water from his fridge. Sitting on his couch that night, I made a decision that changed everything. No more playing nice. No more hoping my parents would see the truth. No more being the good son who kept getting burned. Braxton took 3 women from me because he could. Because there were never consequences. Because our parents shielded him from everything. Fine. If that's how the game worked, I'd learn to play it better. I went dark on my family for what would turn out to be well over a year. Changed my phone number. Moved to a new apartment across town where nobody from my family's orbit would randomly run into me. Birthdays, holidays, Sunday dinners, all erased from my calendar. Wiped my old social media accounts and started fresh with profiles only my real friends knew about. When my mother texted my old number asking where I was for Easter, I didn't see it. When my father left voicemails saying they wanted to talk things through, I never heard them. When my Aunt Carol tried to track me down through Finn, he told her I'd moved out of state for work. Complete blackout. It felt weird at first. Freeing, but weird. Like taking off a backpack you'd been wearing so long you forgot it was heavy. The first few weeks, I kept reaching for my phone to check family group texts that no longer existed. Kept almost driving to Sunday dinner before remembering I wasn't doing that anymore. Old habits take a while to die. Finn kept me updated on the family gossip because I couldn't help being curious. Braxton told everyone I'd had a breakdown. Said the assault charge proved he'd been right about me all along. My parents bought it completely. Told relatives I was getting help somewhere. Nice way of saying their other son finally snapped. Nobody questioned the story. Nobody reached out to hear my side. The family had its version, and I wasn't around to contradict it. Good. Let them think whatever they wanted. I had work to do. I'd been an operations coordinator at a medical equipment company. Decent job, solid benefits, capped potential. The kind of position where you can coast for 20 years and retire with a modest pension and absolutely nothing to show for your time on Earth. That wasn't going to be me anymore. That year, I got aggressive about changing my circumstances. Took every project nobody else wanted because that's where you prove yourself. Stayed late when everyone else left, not to impress anyone, but because I genuinely wanted to understand every part of the operation. Came in early when the office was still dark. Got certified in supply chain analytics through night classes 3 times a week. Started networking with people in leadership positions instead of waiting for opportunities to find me. The work paid off. By August, I'd been promoted to regional operations manager. Moved out of my cramped apartment with the leaky faucet into a place with actual counter space and a parking spot. Started hitting the gym 6 days a week. My cousin Jamal reached out around this time. He'd felt guilty about staying quiet at the party and wanted to make it up somehow. I told him there was nothing to make up, but he insisted on staying in touch. Started coming by my new place to watch games. Turned out we had more in common than I'd realized. He worked in IT security and had a cynical streak that matched mine perfectly. We'd spend entire Sundays roasting our extended family while eating wings. Jamal became my second source of intel. Finn knew the broad strokes of family drama, but Jamal still got invited to events. Still heard the whispered conversations at family barbecues. Between the two of them, I had eyes everywhere without having to show my face. Finn came over one night and stopped in my doorway, looking around at the new place. "You look different, man." "How so?" I said, "I don't know." He said, like someone who figured out what he wants and stopped asking for permission to go get it. He was right. Something in me had shifted. I wasn't the understanding younger brother anymore. I was just waiting. Building. Preparing. The assault charge got dropped in April. Braxton never pressed it formally because that would have meant explaining in court why he was in bed with his brother's girlfriend. Small victory. Then November happened. Jamal called me on a Tuesday night, and for the first time in months, there was actual excitement in his voice. "Yo, did you hear? Braxton has a girlfriend, and get this, he's whipped." Like posting her constantly, talking about their future, the whole thing. People are saying he's going to propose by Valentine's Day. I sat up straighter. What's she like? Jamal gave me the full rundown. Her name was Brooke, late 20s, real estate agent working the upscale suburban market. She was all about motivational quotes at 6 a.m. and brunch photos by noon. According to family gossip, she was completely obsessed with Braxton's image, the car, the watches, the lifestyle. She'd redecorated his apartment twice and kept dropping hints about ring styles. She's basically a female version of him, Jamal said. In other words, she was exactly the kind of person who jumped ship the second something shinier came along. I filed that away. 3 weeks later, Finn invited me to a holiday party in Midtown Phoenix. His coworker's girlfriend knew Brooke from their gym. Brooke would be there, without Braxton. I thought about it for exactly 2 seconds, then grabbed my jacket. I spotted her by the refreshments about an hour in. She wasn't hard to find. Designer everything. Loud laugh. 2 girlfriends she was clearly ignoring while she scanned the room like she was shopping for something better than what she had at home. I didn't approach her. Didn't even look in her direction. Just posted up at a high top with Finn and talked about absolutely nothing important. She approached me. You're Finn's friend, right? You look familiar, but I can't figure out from where. I told her my name, watched her face carefully. Nothing. Braxton had never mentioned me to her. His unstable brother who attacked him for no reason? Not worth bringing up. Didn't fit the image he was selling. We talked for maybe 20 minutes. Surface-level stuff. Her job in real estate. My job in logistics. The endless holiday party circuit. She mentioned Braxton once, and it was to complain. Said he was working late again. Said he'd been distant. Said she felt like she wasn't a priority anymore. I gave her nothing to work with. Said that sounded frustrating. Changed the subject. Asked about her real estate deals instead. When she left to rejoin her friends, I didn't ask for her number, didn't suggest we hang out, just said, "Nice meeting you," and went back to my conversation like nothing happened. She found my Instagram 3 days later. The messages started innocent. Nice meeting you. What are you up to for the holidays? Basic stuff that could have meant anything. I kept my responses short, friendly, but flat. Never more than 1 or 2 sentences. She escalated. Anyway, that's the thing about people who need constant attention. They can't handle being ignored. It's uncomfortable for them on a physical level. Within 2 weeks, we were messaging daily. She was complaining about Braxton openly now, saying he took her for granted, saying she deserved someone who actually appreciated her, saying she was starting to wonder if he was really who she thought he was. The complaints were always the same flavor. Braxton didn't notice her new haircut. Braxton worked late on their date night. Braxton spent more time on his phone than talking to her at dinner. Standard relationship friction that happens to everyone, but she presented it like she was living through a war crime. I gave minimal responses. Just let her keep talking. What I learned during those weeks was that Brooke had never been single for more than 3 months in her adult life. She jumped from boyfriend to boyfriend since college, each one slightly more successful than the last. She wasn't looking for love. She was looking for status upgrades. And now that Braxton had gotten comfortable, she was already scanning for the next step up. I wasn't a step up. I made less money than Braxton, drove a Honda instead of an Audi, lived in a modest apartment instead of a sleek downtown loft. But I was unavailable and unimpressed, which apparently made me more interesting than the guy who'd stopped trying to impress her. By January, she shifted tactics, started fishing for compliments, asking what I thought of her new profile picture, dropping hints. I stayed neutral. Unimpressed. Unavailable. That made her push harder. January 15th, she crossed a clear line. Said she couldn't stop thinking about our conversation at the party. Said there was something about me that felt different. Said she knew it was wrong, but she wanted to see me again. I waited 2 days, then suggested coffee. She showed up overdressed, full hair and makeup for a 2 p.m. weekday coffee date. Spent the first 30 minutes telling me how unhappy she was, how Braxton was always working. Here's what I figured out about Brooke. During that conversation, she'd built her entire identity around being someone's prize, and Braxton had gotten comfortable enough to stop treating her like one. When we left, she hugged me in the parking lot, held on longer than necessary. "Drive safe," I said. Then walked to my car without looking back. She texted an hour later saying she wished we'd had more time. I left it on read until morning. Responded with a thumbs up. Then she showed up at my apartment unannounced on January 28th, said she was in the neighborhood, which was a lie. She was wearing heels and a tight dress in 30-degree weather, hair done, makeup perfect, her signature gold watch on her wrist. I let her in, knew exactly where this was heading. Had known since that first coffee meeting. We sat on the couch. She moved closer, hand on my arm, started telling me that she felt more connected to me after a few conversations than she'd felt with Braxton in months. I looked at her for a long moment. "You know what you're doing right now, right?" I didn't care anymore. She was an adult making a choice. Well, I respected that choice. She stayed that night. Morning came. She left in a rush, worried about being seen. In her hurry, she forgot her gold watch on my nightstand. The one Braxton had given her. An hour later, she texted me, said she shouldn't have come over last night. Then 2 minutes later, a second message saying she didn't regret it. Said it was everything she'd been missing. I screenshotted that exchange. Took a photo of her watch sitting on my nightstand with morning light coming through the blinds. Then I saved both and waited. I picked Valentine's Day because the timing was perfect and I'm not above being petty. Braxton had booked some exclusive restaurant that required reservations 3 months out. Had a custom ring, the whole production. According to Jamal, this was supposed to be Braxton's big moment. The extended family was buzzing about it like it was a royal wedding. At 6:40 p.m., right around when Braxton was probably checking his hair in some bathroom mirror rehearsing his speech, I texted him from a number he wouldn't recognize. One screenshot, Brooke's text from that morning after, the one where she said she shouldn't have come over but didn't regret it. Below it, 3 words, "Ask her yourself," turned my phone off. Went to the gym. Lifted heavier than I had in months. 2 hours later, I turned it back on. 20-some missed calls. A flood of texts ranging from confused to completely unhinged. His first messages were denial. Said I was lying. Said this was fake. Said there was no way Brooke would ever touch me because she loved him. And I was pathetic. I didn't respond. Let him spiral on his own. The next morning, I sent the photo, her gold watch sitting on my nightstand, the distinctive one he'd recognized immediately, the one he'd given her for their 6-month anniversary. No caption needed. Then I blocked his number. Finn and Jamal gave me the play-by-play over the next few days because the fallout was spectacular. Braxton confronted Brooke at the restaurant, right there at the table in front of other diners while the waiter was probably walking over with champagne. She denied it at first. Then she saw the screenshots and completely broke down, started crying, trying to explain. Braxton just sat there processing the fact that his perfect proposal had imploded in public. Someone at a nearby table recorded part of it on their phone, showed a couple friends. Word spread through their social circle within 48 hours. 15 seconds of Braxton looking destroyed while Brooke reached for him. But here's where it got interesting. Braxton tried to spin it. Told anyone who'd listen that I'd manipulated her, that I'd been stalking her for months. Same lies he'd used against me for years. Brooke wasn't protecting him anymore. She was furious about being humiliated publicly. So, she told her friends the truth, showed them the messages, showed them that she'd been the one pursuing me from the start, that she'd shown up at my apartment uninvited. Braxton's version collapsed in real time. The guy who always had everything became the guy who got cheated on by his own brother, the guy who melted down at a restaurant. Jamal called me the week after with details he'd picked up at a family dinner I obviously wasn't invited to. Your mom is devastated, man. Like, won't come out of her room devastated. Your dad hasn't mentioned it once, which means he's still processing. And Braxton, he paused. Braxton told everyone at dinner that you'd been planning this for months, that you're dangerous and obsessed. Same old stuff he always says. Did anyone believe him? I asked. Some did. Some didn't. Aunt Carol said she always knew you were troubled, but my mom actually defended you. Said Braxton has been getting away with too much for too long. Another pause. Oh, and Uncle Mark asked why Braxton's girlfriend was texting you in the first place, if everything was so perfect. Braxton didn't have an answer for that one. Brooke reached out once after everything settled. Asked if we could talk about where things stood. There's nothing to talk about. You thought we had a future? I said. You thought wrong. You came over while you had a boyfriend picking out engagement rings. That tells me everything I need to know. So what? You just used me? She asked. You didn't get used. You made choices. I'm just not going to date someone who makes choices like that. She blocked me. Good. Braxton's downfall was his own doing. I just gave him the first push. He handled the rest himself, one bad decision at a time. The public embarrassment ate at him. Jamal reported that Braxton became paranoid in the weeks after, convinced everyone was laughing behind his back. Started showing up to work distracted, checking his phone constantly, snapping at colleagues over minor things. His sales numbers dropped because he couldn't focus on anything except replaying that restaurant scene in his head. His manager noticed. Hard not to, when your top performer suddenly can't close deals he would have sleepwalked through 6 months earlier. They had a conversation about focus, then another one about attitude. Braxton apparently didn't take either well. The story kept circulating through their social circles. His reputation was done overnight. The image he'd spent 32 years building fell apart like it was made of wet cardboard. He started going out more, trying to prove he was still desirable. But women in his circle knew what happened. Nobody wants to date the guy who got publicly dumped at his own proposal dinner. Finn heard through mutual friends that Braxton got thrown out of a club in Chicago after getting into it with some woman's boyfriend. Threw a punch, missed, knocked over a table. The kind of story that follows you around for months. Then a few weeks later, Jamal called with bigger news. Braxton had been in a car accident. Ran a red light at 2 a.m., hit a parked car. Nobody was hurt, but his Audi was totaled. He spent the night in the same jail where I'd sat a year earlier. My parents bailed him out the next morning. Of course they did. Some habits don't die. But even they couldn't ignore the pattern anymore. Jamal said my mom looked exhausted at Easter dinner. My dad barely spoke. Braxton showed up late, left early, and nobody acknowledged the obvious tension. I wasn't there. Hadn't been to a family event in over a year. My parents tried reaching out. Voicemails I didn't play. Emails I deleted. My mother even mailed a handwritten letter to my old address. I ignored all of it. They made their choice when they left me in that cell. Every time they believed Braxton's lies without question. 28 years of treating me like a supporting character in someone else's story. I was done. Then in April, something unexpected happened. Finn called me on a Sunday afternoon and his voice had that tone that meant something big was coming. Your dad had a heart attack. I didn't say anything for a few seconds. He's stable. They caught it early. He's going to be fine, but your mom's been trying to reach you. I let that sit for a moment. Good to know he's okay. You're not going to call them? He asked. No, Finn didn't push it. He knew better. 3 days later, Jamal showed up at my apartment unannounced. He looked uncomfortable, which was unusual for him. Your mom asked me to talk to you. I said, and you agreed to be the messenger? I agreed to tell you. What you do with it is your call. He sat down on my couch without being invited. Look, man. I'm not here to guilt trip you. What they did was messed up. What Braxton did was messed up. But your dad almost died. And whether you go or not, you got to live with that decision. I went to the hospital. Not for my parents, for myself. I needed to see where I stood. Needed to close something in my own head. My mother was in the hallway when I arrived. She'd clearly been there for hours. Hair not quite right. Clothes wrinkled in a way that told me she'd been sleeping in that waiting room chair. She started crying the moment she saw me. Tried to hug me. I let her, but didn't hug back. Probably looked cold from the outside. Felt cold from the inside, too. I'm so glad you came. Your father, he asked about you. He wants to see you. How is he? I asked. Stable. They're keeping him for observation. They say the next 48 hours are critical, but they're optimistic. She wiped her eyes. We've missed you so much. We want to fix things. We want our family back. This whole situation with you and Braxton, she stopped, looked at me carefully. I said, I'm not here to talk about Braxton. I'm asking about Dad. Right. Right. She collected herself. Like I said, stable. They did a procedure. He's awake now if you want to see him. I looked at her for a long moment. Mostly just felt tired. I appreciate you reaching out. I'm glad Dad's okay, but I'm not interested in pretending the last 28 years didn't happen. What does that mean? She asked. It means I'll check in on his recovery, but we're not rebuilding what was never really there in the first place. She looked like I'd slapped her, but I'd spent too many years saying what people wanted to hear. I stayed for an hour, talked to my dad briefly. He looked small in that hospital bed, which was strange because he'd always seemed larger than life when I was growing up. We exchanged maybe 10 sentences, mostly about his procedure. Nothing about Braxton or the party or any of it. Braxton never showed up the whole time I was there. According to Jamal, he was dealing with his own problems. His job had put him on a performance improvement plan. His apartment lease was coming up and he couldn't afford the renewal without a roommate. The golden child was tarnishing in real time. I left the hospital with something I hadn't expected, clarity. Seeing my father vulnerable didn't change how I felt about the way they'd treated me, but it closed a loop in my head. Now I could move on without that particular weight hanging over me. It's been 8 months since Valentine's Day. Life looks different now. Work is thriving. Bought a house last month. Small place, needs work on the kitchen and the back fence. But when I pull into the driveway at night, I'm pulling into something that's mine. Finn helped me move in on a Saturday. Jamal showed up around noon with a truck full of stuff he insisted I needed. Every man needs a TV you can see from space, he said when I pointed out it barely fit through the door. Pretty sure it's in the Constitution somewhere. We spent the afternoon hauling boxes, sweating through our shirts, making fun of each other's taste in furniture. Ate a pizza sitting on my empty living room floor because I hadn't assembled the kitchen table yet. Then grilled burgers in the backyard while the sun went down, arguing about which sports teams were going to disappoint us this year. Normal stuff. Braxton lost his job in May. Showed up to an important client meeting looking rough. Made a comment about a female colleague's outfit that landed wrong in front of the client and doubled down when she called him out. HR had him in a room within the hour. He got walked out by security before lunch. 32 years of being untouchable, and it ended with a cardboard box and a parking lot escort. He's been unemployed since, burning through savings he never learned to manage. The car accident got his license suspended for 90 days. Mandatory driving classes. Jamal saw him at a gas station recently, getting dropped off by some guy I didn't recognize, because Braxton can't legally drive his own car. Said he looked thin, tired. I felt nothing when Jamal told me that. I didn't cause his downfall. I just stopped being the cushion that softened his landings. Stopped being the safety net that caught him every time he jumped without looking. My mother called last week. Unknown number, so I picked up without checking. She started crying immediately. Didn't even say hello. Just went straight into sobbing about how she didn't understand what happened to our family. Said she wanted her sons back. Said she'd been praying about it. Said my father's heart attack had made her realize what really mattered. I let her finish. I appreciate you calling. I'm glad Dad's recovering, but I told you at the hospital. I'm not interested in rebuilding something that requires me to pretend the last 28 years didn't happen. But you're my son. I love you, she cried. I believe you think that. Long silence. Then what are we supposed to do? I said, I don't know. That's not my problem to solve anymore. I hung up, sat on my porch for a while, looking at the backyard I now owned. What would you have done?